And take one. Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope everybody has had a fantastic week. I hope you got a chance to go and watch my review for Michael and go and see Michael. Today I'm going to be covering yet another throwback type thing where I'm doing another versus video. My versus video for There Will Be Blood and what was the other one? No Country for Old Men, which you can find right here. I'll put the link. You can go check that out. It's doing really well on my channel, and so I figured I would lean into that type of content. It seems to be very popular. Let me know, you guys, in the comments below if you want more old movies like this together, or if you enjoy the newer stuff. I'm going to continue to do both, of course. Also, let me know in the comments below if I should bring back Throwback Thursdays. I'm going to continue to do $2 Tuesdays and talk about sequels then. But just kind of let me know what works and what doesn't work on this channel in the comments below. I need all 25 or 26 of my subscribers right now to let me know what's working and let me know what's not, and kind of give me some pointers as we move along here in the channel. I feel like that's important to say. But other than that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Continue to get all the views up on all my long form videos. Next week, you can expect a video from me on Mortal Kombat 2. I'm going to see that tonight. And so I'm hoping to get a review out for that soon. And then you guys will have this video that I'm talking about today for the weekend. And then real soon, we also have the Backrooms, which I'm excited about and hoping to go see. Devil Wears Prada 2 is out. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the first one yet, but there's also some stuff on streaming that I'm hoping to cover here soon. And then I do have a little secret video in the works at the end of the month here soon, just in time for probably the end of May, which reminds me I'm still working on my sub goal for the end of May, getting to 100 subs. If it doesn't happen, that's totally fine. But thank you guys so much for all of your engagement. Now it is time for another take 2, skip 2 review, and boop. Alright. Today we are talking about Cape Fear versus Silence of the Lambs. Now these are two films that both appeared at the 1992 Oscars. They were both nominated for many different things, and so I want to do a breakdown of two of my favorite horror/thriller movies from that year. And so let's just talk about them. Cape Fear. So Martin Scorsese, as you know, he's on my Mount Rushmore of favorite directors of all time. And I know that he is working on getting together another thriller that's supposed to come out here soon. So I thought that was kind of poignant. And then Apple TV did just release their trailer for the Cape Fear series coming out here soon on Apple TV, with Martin Scorsese coming back and, of course, Steven Spielberg. So I'm going to make it a goal of mine to go watch that. And that's coming out soon. Also Cape Fear, with Javier Bardem, Amy Adams, just a real great cast. So I wanted to talk about Martin Scorsese at the peak of his status in his crime mafia era, and he delivers a frightening experience in his original 1991 film Cape Fear. Some of the atmosphere that I really wanted to lean into, is to focus on the sound design of Cape Fear, where he really uses tonal shifts, like really quiet, what should be comfortable homes and streets and small town vibes in this movie, and turns it into a real terror. Like, it's almost this feeling of you're never safe no matter where you are. Um, Both of these movies are skin crawling type thrillers where you have the more primal, raw feeling of Max Cady in brutal, almost primal revenge. He's a force of nature, and you really feel like he's the physical threat um, of this whole film, which is something I wanted to talk about in this whole movie. This is a frightening experience of paranoia and almost too relatable story to the type of thing that gets, a Netflix style Oscar nominated docu-series nowadays. And you kind of get this eerie feeling from the story where it's the story of a trial gone wrong and a man so affected by his own vengeance that he turns into the physical embodiment of fear and primal instinct, tearing after the one thing that he knows his rival, Nick Nolte, in this film cannot live without, which is his family and his comfortability. And as we drive ourselves deeper and deeper into madness, following alongside the story of Nick Nolte and his family, I actually have here, because of this is one of my favorites, I actually still have the case for Cape Fear. You can kind of see what it's got going on here. Cape Fear is an exciting movie as it gets, and that's the quote text there on the bottom. This film is really good. Jessica Lange does an amazing job kind of bringing that balance to us. And there are just so many frightening scenes in Cape Fear that this one for me won out even over the other one that I wanted to talk about today, which is Silence of the Lambs. But Cape Fear, which is what I wanted to talk about first, is really just a raw fear movie. The most frightening, of course, being De Niro's Oscar. Whoa. Take 3. Robert De Niro's Oscar-nominated performance as Max Cady in this film, for me, along with Jessica Lange as the supporting female actress in this film, they both kind of take this movie and elevate it for me in a different way than I was ever expecting. And they both give amazing, amazing performances, which is why I feel like this movie for me kind of puts itself on a higher, ranking in my feeling for either of these two films. Now, I will talk about at the end which one of these ones is, on my list of favorites. And they're actually both big favorites of mine, but they are ranked on my list of favorites because both of these ones I saw and they left a deep impact on me. So maybe you can compare these two people to what, these two relationships in these movies, whether it's Nick Nolte and Robert De Niro, or it's Jessica Lange and Robert De Niro, or maybe it's just the relation of fear to the understanding of what it really would be like. And this is the type of thing that I feel like Cape Fear does really well, is it sets up the rules of the world, where no matter what this family does, it doesn't matter what they do. Max Cady is almost a superhuman force in the way that he's able to find a way to make his presence known and do it in a almost nonchalant type way. He's very, eerie throughout this movie because you talk about just the edge that this movie lives on is a lot in comparison to what the atmosphere is around all the characters. And the lighting does a lot for these movies, and the silence is like almost palpable at moments in Cape Fear, where you can feel something is about to happen or should be happening, but there's nothing there to really pull you in. And the fact that this is set in a small area relatively makes this feel very isolated and almost like you're trapped no matter where you go because of the way that people look at Max Cady. Like, you're saying this guy is a problem? You're the problem. And that's kind of the insanity of this film, is it starts to make you feel like you're insane for thinking that he is a threat, and maybe this is all just paranoia on the side of Nick Nolte's character in this film. But there's definitely a physical threat there that does ultimately come out in the climax of this film. Which, spoiler, I will be talking about the ending of this movie, where there's this ultimate beatdown and fight scene between the two main male characters in the film. And personally, I feel like that's kind of the climax that it made the most sense to this movie. But ultimately, again, there's never a moment where you feel like Max Cady couldn't come back and just haunt them again, because he feels, like I said, like a supernatural horror monster, almost maybe the first of his kind in a way, where he feels more like a true slasher type monster, where you feel like he's almost unkillable in this movie. And like I said, the story and the pacing and the writing in this movie, obviously, huge shout out to Martin Scorsese on his directing in this one. It makes this movie almost too close to home to what we, to topics that were kind of still very harsh to talk about back then, but have almost become too relevant to how this movie survives time and is still relevant to now. I can't wait to see how they handle this in the TV show, but just the implications of what he did and what he does, Max Cady does, which I feel like I don't really have the tools to talk about. But just there's a reason that this movie survives time, is because it's never not a good story of the justice system, a twisted criminal, and just a very isolated scene inside of small town America that happens way too often and just comes and goes nowadays as another true crime podcast or Netflix documentary. Which leads me into talking about Silence of the Lambs. Jonathan Demme delivers a highly detailed and skin-crawling Silence of the Lambs, giving us an amazing thriller movie that would last ages. This is a timeless piece of art. In fact, it survives so many decades that you can watch it. And some people consider it a horror monster movie. I consider both of these horror in an element way. I know there's a lot of argument around Silence of the Lambs, whether it's just a thriller, mystery, crime. Technically, I think both of these are considered just crime drama on Google. I disagree entirely. I think they're both horror and or thriller in one way or another. But these movies do give us both an amazing thriller. This is a timeless piece based off of just the amount of Oscar performances and writing, along with becoming one of the most quoted horror thrillers of all time, that makes Silence of Lambs a timeless film and a must-watch for anyone looking for a crime binge watch or just a classic throwback to a different time in the horror era of Hollywood. I also have this one as something that I keep up on my shelves up there. Silence of the Lambs, a knockout must-see thriller, is what it says here. This is obviously the Academy Award winner, Best Picture 1991, along with so many other Oscars that I want to talk about real quick that it won. It did sweep the Oscars. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Anthony Hopkins, and Best Actress for Jodie Foster, while Cape Fear, on the other hand, was nominated for a performance from De Niro, and Best Supporting Actress for Miss Jessica, but did not ultimately win. Um, but both of these were big awards nods that year, not unlike No Country for Old Men and um, There Will Be Blood. And if you haven't seen that video, go watch that real quick. So I wanted to talk about this one a little bit, and this is the slow burn that I was talking about throughout. Silence of the Lambs is just a really amazing film. What really stands out about it is, of course, Hannibal or Anthony Hopkins, and he's more of an eerie intellectual control type that he plays with people's minds throughout this film. Jodie Foster is very balanced, and of course, um, uh, you have of course Buffalo Bill. His performance in this movie is frightening, and he gives us so many like quotable lines, um, and the two sides of the same coin in both of these films. One is an instinctual terror, and the other is calculated clinical horror. Both are just very balanced on the edge of a knife between Cape Fear and Silence of the Lambs. You could talk about just the terror built in this one as Jodie Foster kind of follows the line that we kind of get built throughout the film that ultimately leads to another very formidable topic, and something that again I could see as a sequel, or maybe a documentary ultimately online. uh, Silence of the Lambs is different from Cape Fear in the sense of Cape Fear was ultimately a remake of a 60s film, um, but Silence of the Lambs got sequels, and I've heard that the sequels were not good or didn't at least live up to the original. But these both of these films are just amazing. We could talk about the way that both of these films kind of build us to the ultimate climax of getting to see both of our horror monsters kind of take stage and kind of give us this feeling of just ultimate terror of knowing that ultimately we can't trust either of them, but part of us wants to like them just for the fact that they are such characters throughout both of these films. Obviously, Silence of the Lambs is a little more talked about over Cape Fear, just because, like I said, it became one of those horror films that is overly debated over whether or not it's a horror or whether it's just a thriller. But ultimately, it became very famous for its lines and for just the acting ability of Anthony Hopkins, to the point that it's like The Shining, where it gets referenced in a lot of different media. Um, and that's kind of interesting to me because that's obviously a benchmark of how films see themselves through time. You don't see a lot of Cape Fear references, even though I think that's a real shame because both of these performances were iconic in very different ways for both Anthony Hopkins and Robert De Niro, along with obviously Nolte and Foster being the other two that you kind of take the ride with. Ultimately, both of these villains feel personal, but also so different in so many different ways. Whether we're talking about just one villain is that sort of slow burn and kind of just that psychological, he really gets into your brain type with Hannibal, with Dr. Hannibal Lecter, or maybe it's just the all out primal fear that you get from Max Cady. Both of them are two that I consistently return to throughout the year, around Halloween usually, to rewatch them, and they both stand the test of time in the sense of they're not just horror films set for one season, but they also very ring true in the sense of no matter when you watch them, you will always be afraid, and you will always catch little things that still stand the test of time. Both of these movies hit on topics that are still very much so um, relevant today, whether we're talking about mass serial killers or just criminals that leave behind little tracks that ultimately, you think about the Zodiac killer, along with like different people like this that throughout time have had their time in the spotlight that almost feel like exact, film to real life type characters in both of these movies. So, what really makes these films stand the test of time? I think it's the relatability of the crimes. Or is it the tension in both? I think it's a mix of both the relatability, the crimes, especially in Silence of the Lambs. They both feel disturbingly real. Hannibal's almost supernatural uh, type knowledge, and Buffalo Bill, the investigation, both feel very grounded in Silence of the Lambs, along with Cape Fear that taps into that primal fear of being stalked. There's something that is so personal in the everyday danger, and but yeah, that slow burn tension, it's kind of timeless because it gets under your skin no matter how much time passes. So both of these films for me feel like Oscar winners, even though one ultimately was, which is why Cape Fear for me has to be top uh, 10 and probably around place number 10, and Silence of the Lambs would have to be like place number maybe 11. So they're up there for me as far as my favorite movies of all time if I had to rank them, just sitting here right now. But that's all I have to say about these films. I really hope you guys enjoyed my commentary and review of both of those movies. If you want to see either of those films, I really don't know what to tell you. Go rent them, and just find them online to go see them. They're both definitely worth a watch. And until I see you again soon, just remember, if nothing, we always have the hope that I will see you at the movies. Peace.